They be tricking you, because just because they don't use assess, honey, they use the word monitor, and you're monitoring your patients, aka assess. What is up, you guys? It's Yaz and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time viewing my channel, stop what you're doing, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you can join the family. As you can see by the title, this will be a LPN to RN video. In this video I'm going to be addressing, like, is this the route for you, weighing out your options, and my personal journey transitioning from an LPN to a RN, and how I feel about both roles individually, and also that transition from LPN to RN. So without further ado, I'll get right into the video. So the main question that I get regarding nursing is probably what route is best for you, and you know, depending on if that's getting a bachelor in nursing, going off to a university, or staying at a local community college and getting an ADN or a bachelor, because there's different, you know, degrees depending on where you go, or you know, should you do LPN before RN and all that jazz. And so first things first is knowing your circumstances. You know, where are you in life, where do you want to be, what's your time limit, and how much money you want to spend getting that degree. There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear and doubt regarding going to school, because what, it's expensive and it's ridiculous, but it is what it is. And me personally, this is my opinion, I feel like if a loan or taking out money is what's stopping you from getting a degree that you're passionate about, then you should just go for it. At the end of the day, you can be in the position that you are now, and you know, still contemplating that loan two, three years down the road, versus if you just go ahead, you know, take out that loan and be in a different position, you know, 2 years later, a year later, whatever you decide to do, and be paying off this loan. But mind you, you have a stable income, you're in a better place. So it's one of those things. It's definitely like a double-edged sword. But definitely it's just knowing you and your circumstances, because it's all different and it's literally just tailored on what's best for you. So branching off of that is LPN to RN. So a lot of people ask me specifically if they should get their LPN before RN, and I have to say, like I said, it depends on your circumstance. A lot of people get their LPN first. Well, from my experience, I've met a few people who got their LPN first, and one of the main reasons are they kind of want to, you know, finish a degree and be able to work while obtaining their RN degree. So an LPN program is usually like 18 months, I want to say 16 to 18 months, a year. I've heard different ones, but it is shorter than the RN program. And so you're able to, you know, finish that degree and work as an LPN while you finish your RN. Another reason why some people choose to do LPN before RN is being that they feel like they want to get experience first before they go ahead and transition to that registered nurse role, which is super, which I get 100%. You definitely learn a lot being an LPN. You definitely get to actually see the patients, put your hands on the patients, and actually learn stuff, because you can read a book all day, honey, all day, but it doesn't become real. All that stuff kind of doesn't matter until you're actually looking at a patient physically and putting your hands on that patient and doing what it do, you know, which is what I feel like I took the most from being an LPN. So a little bit about me and my journey. I originally didn't go to school for my LPN and then went back and got my RN. I automatically went for my RN, and I ended up challenging my LPN and NCLEX and being where I'm at now. So long story long, originally when I got out of high school, I went to FAMU, home of the Rattlers, in Tallahassee, Florida, to be a pre-nursing student. I always wanted to do nursing, so I went for that. I got really homesick. It was not my vibe. I did not like being away. I didn't like not having a car. I didn't like being broke and hungry, and I couldn't even like call my mom to cook or anything like that. Like, I did not like that aspect of it. So I was really homesick. And then plus on top of that, when it was time to register for classes, they were saying that my transcript wasn't in, and they're talking about my high school transcript, and I'm like, how did I get acceptance to the university if you didn't have my transcript, you know? So that prevented me from registering for my classes. And if you know, when it comes to some universities, or most universities, I've only been to that one, so I can't really like talk for most, is that it's really competitive to get into the nursing program. So it's kind of like when classes open, like I remember all my like pre-nursing friends, we were all like, when they drop, like get on there. We were all on Rate My Professor, like we want these certain teachers because we got to get the best possible grades, so when it's time to apply for the actual program, then we'll be, you know, in there. So being that they had a hold on my account because of my transcript not being there, they said that I couldn't register for my classes. So all my classes were filled. I was still like refreshing the page and seeing what teachers were available day to day, and I still hadn't heard nothing about getting clearance on my account hold. So long story short, I came home because it just wouldn't have been smart for me to stay. I would have paid for a whole semester of school and not really taken any classes towards my nursing degree, and I didn't have the time for that, nor the money. Who has the money to just throw away? I mean, there are people who have money to throw away, but that was not me. So I came home and I started taking classes at the community college. Same thing, financial aid wouldn't get cleared because I had to transfer my FAFSA from FAMU to the community college, and then whatever. So I was taking one class a semester because it was just, I wasn't gonna pay, you know, crazy out of pocket for school. Like that just made no sense, and it was just taking so long. So I came across the route that I found. It was a private nursing school. They took my SAT scores, so I got into the RN program, got into their RN program. I finished their RN program, which was 2 years, and when it came to their exit exam,
I failed not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times.
And I was shook. You know, I've always been a good student. I never really struggled while in nursing school, and I'm not one to make excuses. My mind wasn't where it needs to be. You know, I was dealing with death and, you know, anxiety, depression, all that stuff that comes with that territory. So my head wasn't, like, I was so focused on finishing, but at the same time, it's like my stress levels in my mind wasn't really focused on finishing. So it was, I failed. And with that, I had to do an auditing program where I had to retake 2 classes, and then I took my exit exam again and took my NCLEX and became an RN. But rewind back, that's how I came across becoming an LPN. When I failed that 4th time, one of my classmates found a window, and it was we could challenge our LPN NCLEX, and we did that, and we all passed our LPN NCLEX. So that was awesome, and that's where I became the LPN. So it was definitely a blessing in disguise, and now looking back in retrospect, like, I'm very, very grateful that that did happen. Like, it sucked, it did, don't get me wrong, but I learned so much while being an LPN. Like, first things first is my meds. I don't know about y'all, but I worked in a nursing home, and we had like bingo cards, like cards with the meds. On that card, it says like whatever the medication is, and then it'll say what it is used for, you know, and like how many times a day, all that jazz. And that was my biggest concern, because while in nursing school, I did have a weak point with pharm. I feel like a lot of us struggle with pharm because it's just a lot of meds, and you gotta know them, and a lot of that kind of went in one ear and out the other. I remember like the basics, like, you know, my ACE inhibitors and all that stuff, and your antibiotics, but those little ones, no, I did not, you know, I couldn't get into that one. So working as an LPN definitely gave me that knowledge of actually knowing my meds, which I'm so grateful for, because now as a RN, honey, those orders are put in and it doesn't say what they're for. It doesn't say, you know, none of that. And I feel like they should do that. I feel like it should be there for you to know, because there's still some meds that I'm like, what is that for? And I have to pull out my phone and Google it. So, you know, but mind you, I do know a lot of my meds, and that's because I was looking at those cards all day, and I would always read, and I was always interested to know what it was for. Since I already kind of started talking about like LPN, RN, I'm gonna go into like the roles of it. So I worked as an LPN in a nursing home. It may be different at different facilities or different care settings. However, in the nursing home, I always say like the LPNs are like the RNs here. Now, I started working as an LPN. I was under the impression like, you know, my main thing is to just monitor and, you know, pass meds and take care of the patients, you know, emotionally and just, you know, stuff like that. It obviously physically too, but you know what I mean. And, you know, we're not allowed to assess and all that good stuff, but they be tricking you, because just because they don't use assess, honey, they use the word monitor. And you're monitoring your patients, aka assessing. Because say if there's a patient like, oh, you know, his respirations are 8, his blood pressure is 210/115, you know, something crazy. They're clammy, they have tremors, anything along those lines. That's an assessment. You know, if it was an RN, if I was an RN and I seen that situation, they'd be like, okay, so the nurse assessed the patient, that's what's going on. But as an LPN, they're gonna be like, oh, the LPN was monitoring the patient and this is what they observed. I see what y'all did though. Sure do. So with that being said, you do basically everything. You pass your meds, you do your wound care, you do your respiratory care, and you monitor your patients. But when you're an RN, it's kind of like required. If anything hit the fan, you're not doing active assessments as an LPN. It's kind of like, you know, they're here, they're long term, this is their baseline, and this is what happened. As an RN, you're there for constant changes. At least on my floor, you're kind of like day to day. What's their rate today? Because obviously they're not in a stable place in the hospital. When you get patients in a nursing home or as an LPN, they're supposed to be in a stable condition. Like how you get them is their baseline. That's their normal. Just make sure they stay normal. As an RN, we got people who come in where it's not their normal. They are not right, they're not healthy, and we have to watch them day to day to try to, you know, figure out what's going on, and hopefully they get to their normal, you know, depending on what that is. And technically as an LPN, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to have, you know, stable patients. If you see anything that looks different, you're supposed to go get an RN. But in the real world, we don't have we didn't have many RNs in the facility. The few that we did have were unit managers, and that's a whole nother story for another day. So you kind of did everything, but it wasn't to the extent as the RN, because now I have 5 patients, and with those 5 patients, they can have like 5 different IV drips going on. We have to be monitoring for this, juggling. It's just like the craziest thing to me, because this transition is cool. This transition, I won't say was hard, but it's definitely not as easy as I thought it was gonna be. I am comfortable. Like, I learned the basics as an LPN. I've learned, you know, I'm comfortable talking to doctors. I'm comfortable passing meds and, you know, giving injections and all that stuff, those basic nursing skills and, you know, just patient nurse communication and relationship. I can do that all day. But these assessments and these medicines that are crazy, because as an LPN where I worked, it was like, you know, basic daily medicines, blood pressure pills, water pills, insulin, period. And you know, we have those patients that do like get sick or UTIs, and I start some IV antibiotics or something like that, but it was like here and there, you know. But in the hospital, and like for example, I had a patient who had like 4 medications running at one time. So, and then you have to monitor that, and you gotta know how to, honestly, the hardest part about working as a RN for me is like learning how to do things, because, you know, I've never used this kind of equipment. I've never used their charting system, because honestly, the charting is ridiculous. I don't know what, but it's so much computer work. Like, we had lots of charting to do as an LPN, but I feel like it felt like so much charting because I had so many patients. But at the hospital, it's literally so much charting, because it's like all these different assessment forms that you got to fill out every 2 hours, and this and this and this. Was this sent off? Did you do this? Did you perform this? Like, it's a lot, honey. So their charting is ridiculous, or my charting. And yeah, so that takes up a lot of time too. It's just craziness. And I just like getting to remember like, oh, I haven't done this today, I haven't done that today in the computer, and figuring out, oh, you know, now we're hanging blood. We didn't do blood products at the nursing home, honey. They get sent out to the hospital. And I was quick to, okay, we're gonna transfer you to the hospital, ma'am. But now I'm at the hospital, I'm like, oh, so this what y'all gotta do over here? That's crazy. So yeah, like, you know, learning how to do that. And it's basically like you read about it, you take exams on it, so you know how it's supposed to go, like, you know, cross match it. You need 2 nurses to verify all that jazz. But then it's like, okay, now you're in the position where you have to cross match, and you're kind of like, how do I do that? Like, what am I supposed to do, you know? So it's definitely been a lot, you know, to soak in and actually get my hands on learning, because I feel like that's what it takes. But man, I've been having some really overwhelming days where I just feel super like overwhelmed. I just feel really bad and really hard on myself, because I'm just like, I wish I could have did more today. I wish I didn't have to ask a question about this today. And that comes with the territory, you know, depending on whatever route you decide to do. As an LPN, you're going to feel that way when you start, and as an RN, you're going to feel that way when you start. It's completely normal. Don't beat yourself up because you don't know everything. And if your preceptor or whoever's training you expects you to, then they are crazy and they're insensitive, and that's just ridiculous, because no one comes out they mama just knowing how to be a nurse. Period. So to sum up this whole video, LPN to RN, do you have to be an LPN to become an RN? No, you don't. Has my experience as an LPN helped me transition into being an RN? Yes, it has. Because once you finish that degree, honey, depending on whatever it is, you're going to step into that role. You're going to learn, train, and you're going to be that nurse. Period. So don't be hard on yourself. Just take it day by day. Even if you come across super great nurses that make you feel like, dang, I'll never be as smart as them, whatever. Child, they started somewhere too. You know, I don't ever feel inferior to nobody, because at the end of the day, I can learn something from every single person I encounter, good things or bad things. That wraps up this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to click that subscribe button, like this video if it was helpful, share it to all your friends if they're wondering about the LPN to RN track, because honey, I was for sure one of those people. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, loves.